On what seemed like a totally normal Tuesday morning, millions of people in one city suddenly felt the ground move. Just for a few seconds, everything stopped. So what did it all mean? Well, this is the story of the Kolkata tremor, and we're about to dive into why this was way more than just a little shake.
Just picture this for a second. You're just getting your day started, and bam, your bed starts shaking. Not just a little, but like really shaking. You look up, and the ceiling fan, which you know is switched off, is just swaying by itself. That's a real first-hand account someone shared online, and it perfectly captures that split second of what is happening and pure alarm.
Right, so that's the big question, isn't it? What exactly happened in Calcutta that morning? Let's break it all down. We're going to start with what people actually felt on the ground. Then we'll get into the hard numbers. And finally, we'll zoom out to look at the bigger picture and what this all could mean for the city's future. All right, Section 1, a morning shakeup. Let's rewind back to that exact moment. What does happen when a whole city gets a sudden jolt like that? Let's take a look at how people reacted right away.
It's actually fascinating because in that single moment, you see this split in how people react. You've got one group of people who kind of stayed put, trying to figure out what was going on. They're the ones noticing the fan swaying and things rattling. But then you had another group, a lot of people, who just went on pure instinct. And that instinct was, get out. Now. People were pouring out of their homes, out of offices, into any open space they could find. A real clear sign of a city on high alert.
Okay, so we've heard what it felt like, but what was actually going on under the surface? Behind all those personal stories of shaking beds, there are some cold, hard facts. Let's get into the quake by the numbers. The exact time? 10:10 a.m. And think about that for a second. This wasn't the middle of the night when most people are asleep. This was prime time morning rush. The city was wide awake, in full swing, which probably made the whole thing feel even more jarring for everyone. And here's the number you've been waiting for, the one that tells us about its power, 5.7. To give you some perspective here, that is not a minor rumble you might just ignore. A 5.7 is strong enough for basically everyone to feel it, and it's definitely strong enough to cause widespread alarm, which is pretty much exactly what happened. But here's where it gets really interesting. The earthquake didn't actually start in Kolkata. The epicenter, the point of origin, was hundreds of kilometers away, over near Dhaka in Bangladesh. So what people in Kolkata felt were the powerful shock waves, kind of like ripples in a pond, traveling all the way from that central point. So what was the actual on-the-ground impact in the city? Well, despite all that alarm and panic, the biggest story is really about what didn't happen. There were no confirmed reports of any major damage to buildings, and even more importantly, no reports of injuries. Honestly, in that sense, you could say the city really dodged a bullet. Okay, so no major damage, everyone's safe. You'd think, all right, story's over. But not so fast. This one event, this one tremor, is actually just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle, a pattern that keeps repeating. Just look at the timeline for this year alone. In February, you had a 5.1 in the Bay of Bengal. Then in March, the city felt tremors from a huge 7.7 quake all the way in Myanmar. September, a 5.8 in Assam, and now this 5.7 in November. When you lay it all out like that, it's so clear this isn't some random one-off thing. It's a consistent pattern. So the big question is, why? Why does this keep happening? It all comes down to geology, really. See, Kolkata is located in what's called a moderate to high seismic risk zone. And that's because it's pretty close to these massive fault lines. It's like a slow-motion collision. The Indian tectonic plate is constantly pushing into the Eurasian plate. All that incredible pressure has to go somewhere, and every now and then, it releases in the form of an earthquake. And just to be clear, this is not a new problem. Not at all. This vulnerability goes way back. If you look at the history books, the massive 1897 Assam earthquake was so powerful that it caused real damage all the way in what was then Calcutta. So yeah, the region has been living with this reality for a very, very long time. So all of this brings us to what might be the most important part of this whole story. If we know these tremors are going to happen, if they're a regular part of life in the region, then how prepared is everyone for the next one? And, the one after that? So what are you supposed to do when you feel the ground shake? Well, experts have a pretty clear plan. Step 1, and this is the hardest one, stay calm. Panic just leads to bad decisions. Second, get to a safer spot. If you're inside, get under a sturdy table. If you can, get outside to an open area away from buildings. Third, once it's over, check for updates, but make sure they're from official sources. And that last point, preparing ahead of time, that might just be the most important one of them all.
But look, being prepared yourself is only half the battle. Experts are really clear on this. True readiness has to be a team effort. It has to happen at the community level, at the city level. We're talking about things like major public awareness campaigns, actually enforcing safer building codes, and doing regular disaster drills. The goal is to make the right response so automatic that you don't even have to think about it when the real thing hits.
Okay, so when you put it all together, you've got the personal stories, you've got the hard data, you've got the history. What's the real takeaway here? The bottom line is this. That tremor wasn't just a scary few seconds. It was a wake-up call.
At the end of the day, it really just boils down to one single, unavoidable fact. Every single tremor, whether it's big or small, is basically a reminder from the planet that the ground under our feet isn't as solid as we like to think. That seismic vulnerability, it's not going anywhere. It's a constant.
And that right there, that really gets to the heart of it. The shaking itself isn't the main story. The real story, the big lesson here, is about how we prepare for what comes next. It is all about being ready and having a solid plan so you can respond quickly and effectively when it really counts. Look, ultimately, Kolkata got lucky this time. The shaking was scary, for sure, but it wasn't catastrophic. You could almost think of it as a citywide drill, a test run with no real consequences, which is the best kind of test you can get. And that leaves us all with one final, crucial question. It's a question for every single person who lives there and for every official in charge. The city was spared this time, but is it really, truly ready for the next?